In October of 2020, Major General Ed Thomas, who at the time was the commander of the Air Force Recruiting Service, wrote an op-ed for Yahoo News, and it was entitled, 86% of Air Force pilots are white men. Here's why this needs to change. In about 800 words, Major General Thomas outlined his plan to recruit pilots without regard for their competence or fitness or their loyalty to the United States. Instead, Thomas explained, the most important thing for the Air Force to focus on was the skin color of its recruits. He said that hiring more black and brown recruits was vital in order to keep pace with Russia and China. You know, they're busy developing hypersonic missiles that can fly at like 20 times the speed of sound. But the general wrote, the real secret sauce for us that keeps us competitive is diversity. And according to Ed Thomas, quote, our goal is to get in front of every demographic group in America and show them someone who wears a flight suit every day that they can look up to and say, that could be me. Now, 3 years after he wrote that op-ed and launched the Air Force's anti-white recruitment plan, Major General Ed Thomas retired. So he inflicted his DEI recruitment strategy on the Air Force, and then he quickly left. So he doesn't have any reason to care about the consequences. But especially as World War III seems more plausible by the day, the rest of us have an important question to ask, which is, how did this DEI strategy turn out exactly? Thomas's replacement, a general named Christopher Ammerheim, testified this month before the Senate Armed Services Committee, and he informed Congress when he testified that for the first time in 24 years, the Air Force has failed to meet its basic recruitment goal. And I'll say that one more time. For the first time in more than 2 decades, the Air Force didn't hit its recruiting objective. So they were trying to expand their recruitment. We were told they were expanding it to reach more people, and in response, they got fewer people. In fact, it was off by around 10%, which is a major miss. And they're not alone. Ammerheim went on to testify that the Army and Navy, which also put a new emphasis on recruiting minority candidates, also fell far short of their projections in the most recent fiscal year, which ended in September. He testified that, quote, we've seen a steady decline in the military even being an option for our youth as they contemplate the future. Now, if you crunch the numbers, you'll find that that's actually a massive understatement. In total, the military missed its recruitment goal by more than 40,000 individuals. The Army now has about 450,000 active duty soldiers, its smallest size since 1940, before the U.S. entered World War II. In all, the U.S. military currently has around 1.4 million active service members, and by comparison, China's military has more than 2 million. Now, as alarming as all those statistics are, the news gets even worse when you consider the quality of the few people who are still signing up to serve this country. The Daily Mail reported this week on what it calls a TikTok mutiny among recruits who are increasingly posting videos online to complain about the conditions they're shocked to encounter in the military. These are people in the military in full uniform making TikTok videos complaining, and often recording themselves inside U.S. military bases, whining that the pay is bad, the food isn't up to their standards, and many other types of complaints. Here are just a couple of those videos. Check it out.
These are my top 5 reasons on why you shouldn't join the military. Reason number 1 is pay. We do not get paid enough for what we do. I'm not here to say that we get paid pennies. I'm just saying that we don't get paid enough to perform the mission that is tasked to us. Reason number 2, family. You will not see your family often. You might see them on holidays, and that's about it. I can elaborate. Reason number 3, schooling. Now I know you're like, whoa, that was a benefit, but it's requirements you have to meet first to be able to get to that schooling. So if you're thinking about joining because of schooling, just go to school. Reason number 4, if you're a parent. Now, if you join single and get married and then have kids, that's one thing. But if you're already having a child and you're thinking about joining, don't. You got to think about it. Boot camp is between 6 to 8 weeks. After boot camp, you go to school. That's between 10 days to a year. After that, you go to deployment. That's between 8 months to 9 months. Think about how much time you miss with your child. Reason number 5, you do not have 100% say on what you want to do.
Five reasons why you shouldn't join the army.
Why you should not join the army. Number 1, I know what y'all want to hear, to pay. Starting off, like First, like E1, I'm pretty sure you're making like $1,600 a paycheck, and that's like not.
I can cut it there. So you get the idea. It goes on and on and on. The reasons are all the same too, and these are all things that I guess surprised these guys. Like they didn't see that coming. The fact that you're not going to be able to see your family when you're at boot camp, was that like? Did you not know that? And you'll notice that nowhere in those TikTok videos do any of the soldiers, and there's a lot of them out there. A lot of these TikTok videos. Nowhere do they talk about like their pride in the country or their family's history of service or their desire to ensure a safe and prosperous world for their grandchildren. They don't talk about any of that because none of that applies to them. A recent poll by Gallup found that only 1 in 10 young liberals were extremely proud in their country. 1 in 10. And since most young people are liberal, well, this is what you get. Now, on the bright side, it is a diverse group of soldiers in these clips, and you watch any of these videos from the TikTok mutiny, it's very, very diverse. Lots of non-white males, lots of females as well making these kinds of videos. There's no denying that. Very diverse. So that's at least one objective that our Pentagon has successfully completed. Unfortunately, all of these diverse recruits are saying pretty much the same thing, though. They're not making enough money. They're not getting enough respect. They can't see their families as often as they'd like to. So on and so on. Now, of course, all of these complaints have always applied to life in the military. The food has never been, from what I've told, 5-star quality. The pay has always been abysmal. You've always had very little control over your life because, the military decides what you do and where you go. The difference is that now we're filling the ranks with the sorts of people who would not only whine about it, but whine publicly in uniform on video for clicks. These are the kinds of recruits that we're told are going to help us defeat China and their hypersonic missiles. This is what equity looks like in the armed forces. And no one's allowed to point out what a disaster it's been. But it has been a disaster. But the issue isn't just diverse recruitment efforts and TikToks. There are much deeper problems with the military's leadership. And a handful of recent incidents give us clues as to what these deeper problems are. So last December, the Washington Times reported that the Defense Department launched an investigation into 2 Army soldiers who, quote, took sexually explicit photos in uniform while wearing dog masks and bondage gear. Now, some of those photos were apparently taken on an airfield, as well as inside a locker room with nameplates for Joint Base Pearl Harbor. Nothing ever came of that investigation. In fact, we mentioned it on this show. But as far as I could tell, the military just buried it and nothing came of it. That same month, a high-ranking commander in New Jersey named Chris Schilling, who was stationed at Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst, threatened a mother on Facebook because she complained about gay propaganda that her 7-year-old daughter was learning at school. So here's what the mother, Angela Redding, wrote on Facebook, quote, "Why are elementary schools promoting/allowing elementary kids to research topics of sexuality? How can my young children be accepting of people who are sexually attracted to multiple genders? They don't know what sex is." Now, her post continued along those points and along those lines, and it makes a very valid, very good point. At no point did she threaten anyone. But in response, Chris Schilling wrote this, quote, "The Joint Base leadership takes this situation very seriously and from the beginning have had the security forces working with multiple state and local law enforcement agencies to monitor the situation to ensure the continued safety of the entire community." Now, in this case, the military never explained why Chris Schilling was posting publicly on behalf of a military base and intimidating a mother who was expressing her views on social media. They certainly didn't publicly fire Chris Schilling, which would have been obviously appropriate. Again, they just buried the story. A majority of Gen Z supports left-wing policies like open borders and socialism. If we don't reach them and change their minds, the country we know and love will be lost forever. PragerU is the leading nonprofit when it comes to influencing young people. PragerU's educational, entertaining, pro-American videos meet young people where they are online and open their minds to the truth. But they need your help. Go to PragerU.com, make a tax-deductible donation. Whatever you give right now will be tripled and have 3 times the impact. Donate $10, it triples to $30. Give $100, it triples to $300. PragerU is 100% free to everyone with no fees or subscriptions. They don't rely on ads or clickbait headlines. Contrary to what the left says, PragerU isn't funded by a handful of billionaires. It's funded by people just like you. In order to keep making great content, reaching millions, and changing minds, PragerU needs your help. Go to PragerU.com to donate today. Christmas is coming, and while you're out shopping for your kids, family, and friends, don't forget to shop for your pets too. Give your dog the gift of a healthier and happier life with Rough Greens. Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, the founder of Rough Greens, is focused on improving the health of every dog in America. Before I started feeding my dog Rough Greens, I had no idea that dog food is dead food. It contains very little nutritional value. Think about it. Nutrition isn't brown, it's green. Let Rough Greens bring your dog's food back to life. Rough Greens is a supplement that contains all the necessary vitamins, minerals, probiotics, omega oils, digestive enzymes, and antioxidants that your dog needs. You don't have to go out and buy new dog food. Just sprinkle Rough Greens on their food every day. Dog owners everywhere are raving about Rough Greens. It supports healthy joints, improves bad breath, boosts energy levels, and so much more. We are wheat, and that goes for dogs too. Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black is so confident Rough Greens will improve your dog's health. He's offering my listeners a free Jumpstart trial bag so your dog can try it. Get a free Jumpstart trial bag delivered straight to your door in just a few business days. Go to roughgreens.com/Matt or call 844-ROUGH-700. It's ruffgreens.com/Matt or call 844-ROUGH-700 today. Now, each of these incidents, as egregious as they are, point to the transformation of the U.S. military from a fighting force into a political tool. Their goal now is the same as the goal of every federal agency under the Biden administration, which is to promote a perverse cult and root out any non-believers. That's why 3 years ago, the Pentagon commenced a political purge that was thinly veiled as a COVID mandate. In just the past few years, more than 8,000 military service members were discharged for refusing to take the COVID shot. Could that be one of the reasons why the numbers are down? Now, only around 40 of those service members ever returned. They're mostly gone for good. Because the point wasn't really to keep service members from dying of COVID, it was to punish people with wrong political views. And now, the people who want to sign up are, as we see in some of these TikTok videos, many of them are sort of entitled and lazy. And, it's easy to make this into a commentary on Gen Z, and that's what a lot of the analysis on this has been focused on that. Well, Gen Z, they're all lazy. This is how they are, and to some extent, sure, it's a commentary on them, but it's more a commentary on our institutions that have created people like this and a military like this. The biggest problem for the military right now, and it is a very major problem, is that they're not only light in numbers, but in the quality of the recruits they're bringing in. It used to be that the military would actively recruit young men and call them to come and sacrifice themselves in defense of their country. They were looking for men who could kill the enemy. Like they're looking for people who are going to go out and kill the bad guys. And they didn't hide from that fact. Full Metal Jacket is a fictional film, obviously, but by all accounts, its depiction of Marine Corps boot camp 50 years ago isn't too far from accurate. And in one iconic scene, the drill sergeant tells the recruits that they need to become killers and then gives Charles Whitman and Lee Harvey Oswald as examples of effective Marine Corps assassins. Now, that's not the kind of speech that we would want drill sergeants giving in reality. Mass murderers aren't really the best role models, but the point is that the military didn't used to hide from the fact that it was calling men to violence. Violence for a good cause in service to their country, but violence. So you see here three things that are now missing from the way the military recruits and trains people. They used to look for, one, men who were, two, motivated by higher ideals like patriotism, and were, three, eager and willing to kill bad guys. The military's current recruitment strategy specifically avoids all of that. Now they put out recruitment ads that look like Disney movies or the kinds of videos you might see in a corporate HR seminar. So here, for example, we played this on the show a long time ago, but just one recent recruitment ad from the Army. It specifically targets women who are motivated not by patriotism, certainly not by a desire to go out and kill the enemy, but really by narcissism. Watch.
This is the story of a soldier who operates your nation's Patriot missile defense systems. It begins in California, with a little girl raised by two moms. Although I had a fairly typical childhood, took ballet, played violin, I also marched for equality. I like to think I've been defending freedom from an early age. When I was 6 years old, one of my moms had an accident that left her paralyzed. Doctors said she might never walk again. but she tapped into my family's pride to get back on her feet, eventually standing at the altar to marry my other mom. With such powerful role models, I finished high school at the top of my class, and then attended UC Davis, where I joined a sorority full of other strong women. But as graduation approached, I began feeling like I'd been handed so much in life, a sorority girl stereotype. Sure, I'd spent my life around inspiring women, but what had I really achieved on my own? One of my sorority sisters was studying abroad in Italy. Another was climbing Mount Everest. I needed my own adventures.
Okay, so you get the idea. And that recruitment ad's a couple of years old, I think, at this point. So you see this drop-off in recruitment that now the Pentagon is telling us about, and it's a real crisis. And it's like right around when that ad went out is when things started to plummet. And you can see why. This is, an ad. First of all, that video, like you can take that exact video, the way it looks, sounds, everything, and that could easily be a video that maybe they'd show you if you work at Target about how they recruit people for their management program at Target. Except this is the military. So we see a strong and independent woman raised by two lesbians to become a left-wing social justice activist. We're told that she grows up, gets hired by the Army, and then later she talks about how she gets to boss men around. She doesn't want to serve her country. She wants to use her job in the Army to impress her sorority sisters. And it's all about me and I. It's my adventure. I want to do something for me. This is kind of the person the military has been targeting, and this is the way they've been targeting them. And it's not just the Army that's been trying to remove all hints of masculinity from its ranks. As Matt Gaetz pointed out this year, Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana recently hosted a drag queen story hour. So did Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada, Joint Base Langley in Virginia, all had drag queen story hours. This year, amid all the scrutiny, the Pentagon reluctantly announced that the Navy has suspended its formal drag queen events. And that led to maybe the single most depressing, but perhaps unintentionally hilarious news conference ever delivered by the Department of Defense. Watch.
This drag queen recruiting initiative, is that strictly a Navy project? Or are you going to have the other services also get involved? Is there going to be an Army drag queen, Air Force drag queen, that sort of thing? Is it strictly a Navy project?
Well, I would say first, and at the top, just looking at this holistically, we are incredibly proud of those who decide to serve, and that's every young American who decides to serve and to take the oath to put their line on the line in defense of our country. Again, the program I believe that you're referring to was the Navy Digital Ambassador Program, which was a pilot outreach effort. It was not a recruiting effort. For more information on that, I would direct you to the Navy. But this pilot program has concluded, and the Navy is evaluating the program and how it exists in the future.
So the drag queen initiative was suspended, says the Pentagon lady, but the military never apologized for it. They never reacted with horror that this was going on in the first place. Instead, they've just done what they've been doing the past few years, which is that they buried it, tried to move on, admitted no fault, and but then also kind of just kept on doing what they were doing before. And here's the reality, that all this kind of stuff, lowering standards, filling the military with cultists who hate this country, this is not the solution to low recruitment. Everybody knows that. The solution to low recruitment is to, first of all, apologize for firing soldiers because they won't take an experimental shot, reinstate all those soldiers with back pay immediately, then fire any officer who had any involvement in that decision, including Lloyd Austin. Then the Pentagon needs to repudiate the testimony of former Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Mark Milley, who repeatedly lectured soldiers about, quote, white rage. Instead of pretending that white supremacy is the biggest threat we face and making cartoon recruitment videos for narcissistic girl bosses, the Pentagon should do what it used to do, which is reward merit and character. And most of all, if you want to solve your recruitment problem, you need to speak to men specifically and call them to service using language that evokes higher ideals like patriotism and courage and loyalty. And then you need to turn it back into a place tailor-made for men like that. Now, under the current administration, of course, the military will do precisely none of that. That's because from the various highest levels, the Biden administration doesn't believe this country or its values are worth defending. The end result is the crisis that the military currently faces. And it is indeed a crisis, but it's a crisis of their own making. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.